At 2:14 a.m. in February 2026, a reinforced compound along the Kursk-Donetsk corridor, identified as the Rubicon Center of Advanced Unmanned Technologies, was operating under what Russian personnel believed to be secure conditions. The facility had been central to Russia's effort to overcome persistent electronic warfare pressure that had disrupted its drone operations for nearly 2 years. According to the information available, Rubicon engineers had introduced fiber optic guided strike drones designed to function without emitting radio frequencies, eliminating traditional electromagnetic signatures that Ukrainian systems had previously exploited. The core of the project was the Prince Vandal fiber optic drone system. Unlike conventional unmanned aerial vehicles that rely on radio links, this system used a physical tether of glass filament measuring between 10 and 20 kilometers in length, thinner than a human hair. Through this fiber, operators received real-time, zero-latency video feeds without compression artifacts or signal degradation. The absence of radio emissions meant there was no frequency to intercept, no digital chatter to track, and no spectrum to jam. Russian assessments concluded that this approach effectively neutralized Ukrainian electronic warfare advantages that had previously blinded and disabled standard RF drones mid-flight. At the time of the strike, engineers inside the compound were reviewing high-definition footage from recent fiber optic test runs. Diesel generators powered the facility through freezing winter conditions, producing steady heat signatures. Security units conducted routine patrols around the perimeter, operating under the assumption that radio silence equaled invisibility. The compound's reinforced walls and structured security protocols reflected confidence in the technological shift away from vulnerable radio systems. However, Ukrainian forces approached the target through a different methodology. 43 minutes before the first launch sequence, a Ukrainian Shark reconnaissance drone established a silent orbit at approximately 22,000 feet. Operating above visual detection and outside conventional radio-focused radar tracking, the platform relied on optical and thermal sensors. Over a 72-hour period, Ukrainian analysts combined data from commercial satellite imagery, partisan reports from occupied territories, and long-range optics that recorded vehicle patterns, license plates, and unit insignias from distances exceeding 5 miles. At approximately 2:30 a.m., the Shark drone's infrared systems identified a consistent generator exhaust plume venting into sub-freezing air over terrain cooled to near 0 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat signature was constant and fixed, indicating a stationary, power-intensive installation. Ukrainian assessments concluded that fiber optic production required calibrated winding machinery capable of spinning fragile glass filament at high rotational speeds. While the drones themselves emitted no radio signals, the production ecosystem generated predictable physical patterns. Additional surveillance assets expanded the operational picture. A Ukrainian Bayraktar TB2 unmanned combat aerial vehicle maintained distant observation of vehicle ingress and egress routes around the compound. On the ground, forward observer teams equipped with Stugna P anti-tank guided missile systems monitored potential armored escort movements. In reserve, M777 howitzers stood prepared to deliver conventional artillery fire if dispersion occurred. The reconnaissance was layered across air, ground, and space-based assets. By 2:32 a.m., encrypted coordinates refined to within several feet were transmitted to a mobile, high-mobility artillery rocket system concealed approximately 42 kilometers away within a frozen tree line. Launcher crews had prepared M31A1 guided rockets, each carrying a 2,000-pound unitary high-explosive warhead designed to penetrate reinforced concrete prior to detonation. Each rocket was valued at approximately $160,000, and the launcher platform at roughly $5 million. Supporting assets, including Excalibur precision-guided artillery rounds and loitering munitions, remained on standby in case of target movement. At 2:34 a.m., ignition occurred. Rocket motors briefly illuminated the forest line before the missiles accelerated toward Mach 2.5, entering ballistic trajectories with an estimated flight time of 2 minutes. At the compound, generator systems continued operating, and internal activity appeared unchanged as the rockets closed the distance. The strike marked a calculated escalation within a broader Ukrainian campaign targeting Russian infrastructure supporting unmanned warfare capabilities in the Kursk sector. At 2:36 a.m., the first warhead impacted the main command structure. Reinforced concrete was penetrated before detonation, and structural failure followed. A second strike occurred milliseconds later, dispersing tungsten fragments across vehicle bays and exposed technical areas. Within seconds, the facility transitioned from steady operation to cascading structural collapse. Ukrainian surveillance assets maintained confirmation of strike accuracy, while air defense units remained on alert for potential retaliation. The operation underscored a shift in targeting priorities from frontline units to production ecosystems. By striking calibrated fiber optic winding systems and associated infrastructure, Ukrainian forces aimed to disrupt not only current inventory but the industrial capacity sustaining future drone deployments. For ongoing coverage and verified updates, subscribe to our channel. Following the initial impacts at 2:36 a.m., the scale of destruction at the Rubicon Center of Advanced Unmanned Technologies became clearer through coordinated Ukrainian surveillance. The first M31A1 guided rocket penetrated the reinforced roof of the main command structure before detonating internally, generating overpressure that ruptured concrete and compromised steel support beams. Interior compartments collapsed inward as shockwaves traveled through corridors designed for technical operations rather than kinetic resistance. Within milliseconds, a second strike followed, assessed as a fragmentation variant, dispersing approximately 180,000 tungsten fragments across vehicle bays and adjacent work areas. Transport trucks, optical equipment, and control consoles were disabled almost instantly. Thermal imagery from the Shark reconnaissance drone, orbiting at 22,000 feet, recorded expanding heat blooms across the compound. Snow-covered terrain intensified the contrast, allowing analysts to confirm secondary fires and structural degradation. A Bayraktar TB2 unmanned combat aerial vehicle maintained standoff observation to verify strike accuracy and monitor potential emergency response activity. Ukrainian air defense units, including Patriot PAC-3 systems, remained on alert for retaliatory aerial action. Each interceptor missile was valued at approximately $4 million, reflecting the layered defensive posture maintained during the operation. According to available information, the strike was designed not as area bombardment, but as a precision removal of industrial capacity. The spooling systems inside the Rubicon workshop were specialized winding machines capable of handling up to 10 kilometers of glass filament at rotational speeds exceeding 60 miles per hour. These systems required calibrated tension control modules, balanced drum assemblies, vibration dampening mounts, and technicians trained in microcalibration. Analysts assessed that such equipment could not be rapidly replaced. While drone airframes can be produced through additive manufacturing and electronic components assembled within hours, calibrated fiber deployment machinery demands custom tooling and extended calibration periods. Ukrainian planners evaluated the economic balance of the operation. Two guided rockets at approximately $160,000 each represented a total munitions expenditure near $320,000. In exchange, the strike eliminated multi-million-dollar infrastructure, precision machinery, completed drone stockpiles, and trained personnel with extensive operational experience. The assessment emphasized disruption of production rather than destruction of a single building. Inventory can be replenished, but industrial processes and accumulated technical expertise require extended reconstruction timelines. The personnel stationed at Rubicon reportedly included aerodynamics engineers, electronic warfare specialists, and drone operators with extensive combat flight hours. The loss of testing data, field adjustments, and doctrinal refinements built over repeated deployment cycles was considered strategically significant. Analysts described the removal of this technical ecosystem as a psychological as well as material setback, signaling that facilities relying on radio silence were still vulnerable to thermal and infrastructure-based targeting. In response to the strike, Russian forces initiated a missile barrage aimed at Ukrainian radar grids and electronic warfare hubs. From the Barents Sea, an attack submarine launched caliber cruise missiles traveling at speeds exceeding 1,500 miles per hour. A Black Sea surface combatant followed with Onyx missiles, valued at approximately $3 million each. Ukrainian radar operators reported multiple fast-moving contacts approaching from different vectors, some at low altitude, others performing evasive maneuvers intended to complicate interception. Ukrainian electronic warfare units identified as Buaval AD and NOTA activated along concealed positions near tree lines and rural roads. These systems transmitted dense jamming signals against guidance frequencies as incoming missiles crossed into Ukrainian airspace. According to the data provided, several missiles lost navigation links and deviated into open terrain, while others spiraled and detonated without reaching designated targets. Despite damage in some rural areas, Ukraine's radar grid remained operational. With airspace surveillance intact, Ukrainian fighter aircraft, including MiG-29 and Su-27 platforms, launched to secure aerial control near the border. MiG-29 aircraft were equipped with air-to-air missiles valued at approximately $140,000 per unit, while Su-27 aircraft carried standoff rockets valued near $250,000 each. Patriot PAC-3 batteries formed an air defense umbrella to deter Russian fighter response. Bayraktar TB2 drones advanced ahead of the manned aircraft, scanning transportation corridors near Kursk and identifying reinforcement movements, including fuel trucks and mobile radar units. Simultaneously, first-person view drones targeted ground convoys. One drone struck a Russian command truck, and another disabled a mobile radar array. The resulting disruption forced vehicles to disperse toward wooded areas. Ukrainian pilots expanded operational corridors incrementally as Russian Su-35 aircraft attempted to scramble from Kursk airbase. Long-range Patriot radar locks reportedly forced those aircraft to withdraw before engagement. The combination of sustained radar coverage, electronic warfare activity, precision drone strikes, and fighter patrols shifted local air superiority dynamics. Ground routes toward Kursk experienced disruption, and defensive systems previously considered secure faced layered pressure. The events marked an escalation beyond the initial strike on the Rubicon facility, extending operational effects into air and missile defense domains across the Kursk sector. As Ukrainian forces consolidated air and electronic control along the Kursk axis, operations expanded toward strategic command infrastructure within the region. Electronic warfare units identified as Buavel AD and NOTA advanced in camouflage convoys toward forward positions near the frontier. Their objective was to degrade the integrity of Russian air defense networks, protecting key facilities, including the FSB headquarters in Kursk. These units deployed antenna arrays and began transmitting sustained jamming signals designed to interfere with radar tracking, encrypted communications, and missile guidance channels. Russian Panzer systems positioned near high-value targets reported radar interference shortly after activation of Ukrainian electronic countermeasures. Operators experienced signal distortion and intermittent loss of target tracking. Subsequent reports indicated similar disruptions affecting Buk M2 units operating farther west. The most significant impact was observed within the S-400 Triumph network guarding Kursk. Normally linked through encrypted data channels coordinating target acquisition and engagement sequences, several launchers experienced degraded connectivity. Guidance packets were interrupted, and command relays became inconsistent, fragmenting what had functioned as an integrated air defense grid. Ukrainian surveillance assets detected widening coverage gaps above Kursk. Drone operators reported reduced radar illumination, and pilots flying at low altitude observed diminished threat receiver activity. With defensive cohesion disrupted, Ukrainian planners initiated a follow-on strike aimed at the FSB headquarters. A MiG-29 aircraft configured for precision attack approached at low altitude, reportedly maintaining flight at approximately 150 feet to reduce detection probability. The aircraft carried two French-manufactured AASM hammer-guided bombs, each weighing approximately 550 pounds. In coordination with the aerial approach, HIMARS batteries positioned within Ukrainian territory launched guided rockets targeting Russian S-300 sites, intended to reinforce outer defensive belts. Bayraktar TB2 drones continued overwatch operations, transmitting coordinates to ground control stations. Swarms of smaller first-person view drones targeted logistical convoys attempting to reinforce defensive positions, striking fuel vehicles and mobile radar units along access roads leading toward Kursk. As the MiG-29 ascended to release altitude near 16,000 feet, Russian S-400 systems activated. Launch tubes opened, and 48 N-6 interceptor missiles accelerated to high velocity in attempts to neutralize the incoming aircraft and munitions. Panzer S-1 systems engaged with short-range missiles and 30mm cannon fire. Simultaneously, two Su-35 fighters launched from Kursk Air Base in response to the intrusion. However, long-range Patriot batteries within Ukrainian territory reportedly established tracking locks on the Russian aircraft from distances exceeding 50 miles, prompting the Su-35 pilots to disengage. Ukrainian electronic warfare units intensified jamming during the engagement. Russian radar operators reported false returns and intermittent signal blackouts. Interceptor missiles detonated without confirmed target destruction. According to available details, both AASM hammer bombs remained on course. The first penetrated the reinforced roof of the FSB headquarters before detonation, generating an internal explosion that compromised structural integrity. Moments later, the second bomb struck the weakened structure, triggering collapse of multiple floors. The building sustained catastrophic damage within seconds. Ukrainian spotters positioned at distance confirmed impact through visual observation of a rising plume. Communications intercepted on open channels reportedly included confirmation of target neutralization. The strike represented a direct attack on regional security infrastructure following the earlier destruction of the Rubicon production facility. In a separate operation referenced within the broader campaign, a low-flying drone identified as Rubicon employed a fiber optic tether to evade radio frequency jamming near Mariupol. Russian Panzer radar systems were assessed to have a coverage limitation below 150 feet, enabling the drone to approach undetected. Decoy drones were deployed to draw missile fire, leading to expenditure of 57 E-6 interceptors valued at approximately $60,000 each. When Russian Bayraktar TB2 electronic warfare units flooded the 5.8 GHz band, the fiber optic tether allowed continued control. During the engagement, a Grad rocket detonation generated a shockwave that nearly severed the tether. The operator maintained control and directed the drone into a transport vehicle carrying ammunition and personnel. The resulting explosion ignited an estimated 2 million pounds of stored munitions, creating a crater approximately 100 feet deep. The blast reportedly eliminated 6 operators associated with the Akhmat UAV detachment and destroyed ammunition reserves intended to sustain up to 10,000 troops for 3 weeks. The supply corridor between Crimea and Zaporizhia was disrupted. The cumulative operations demonstrated a pattern of targeting production capacity, air defense cohesion, command infrastructure, and logistical supply lines. Ukrainian assessments emphasized cost asymmetry, noting that relatively low-cost drones and guided rockets neutralized infrastructure and materiel valued in the hundreds of millions. Civilian impact was also reported, with smoke and debris affecting populated areas near Mariupol. Rescue teams operated to secure debris and assist affected individuals. The events mark a significant escalation in the technological dimension of the conflict, highlighting the interaction between electronic warfare, precision munitions, and industrial targeting. Further developments are expected as both sides assess operational losses and strategic adjustments. For continued updates and verified reporting, subscribe to our channel.